mage deck. We've been seeing a lot of shamans bans. We actually haven't seen much mage, and when we have seen the mage, they haven't been very successful. Is it that threatening, Lothar, especially if you have a warrior in your lineup?
Well, when you consider that you have a rogue in your lineup, freeze mage practically punishes that deck, right? It has to be like a risk assessment. How much do I value shaman instead of a mage, right, in my opponent's lineup? Because I think that's the main issue. And I think like banning mage when an opponent has a shaman might be kinda iffy. But
Well, I think another side of it too is SjoW's not as afraid of the shaman as many other people would be, because he does have that Zoo Warlock, and it does make the matchup against shaman in the lineup a little bit more bearable compared to having some other decks that are more control oriented that are weaker to the shamans, especially the fast ones like Xixo plays. So maybe he feels like, okay, maybe shaman's not too bad. I have a couple decks that are good against it. I can let that shaman through and target another deck which might be stronger against my lineup, like this mage.
well, that's true. When you have a zoo, then the freeze mage is kind of like a big question mark in this matchup, right? Because you most likely will lose to the because zoo lost a lot of death rattle minions post rotation.
Sure, sure. A lot of people lost a lot of things.
But also speaking of the matchups, I mean, if Xixo's mage is presumably freeze mage and SjoW can basically assume that, then all the decks he brought are very, very vulnerable to freeze mage. So Zoo, for example, is probably only a 40% win rate against that deck, but especially decks like his Tempo Warrior with probably 40% as well, and his Rogue, which is basically Cthulhu, not Cthulhu, but Nezot Rogue, is even much, much lower than the standard Rogue. So I would assume that all three decks are really, really bad against freeze mage, so it only makes sense to ban freeze mage out of the lineup.
I actually think if maybe Nezot Rogue has actually better matchup than the standard Miracle Rogue.
Maybe we'll find out if we have an opportunity to take a look at some of these matchups. But for now, we will have those bans in. And I believe we're getting to game number 1. We're kick things off with the Warlock, the Zoo Warlock versus Shaman. Make sure you guys are getting out there and let people know, twitch.tv/FaceItTV, that we're going to kick things off on day number 2. SjoW versus Xixo is about to begin, so Lothar, life coach, take it away.
Thank you very much,
Thank you very much, brother.
Okay, so first match, Warlock versus Shaman. This is something that you previously mentioned, like a few seconds ago, that it favors the Zoo Warlock, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even, I think like it's favoring more Zoo against a mid-range Shaman than it favors it against a aggro Shaman, because the amount of drops from aggro Shaman will be more consistent, right? So that he can battle for board or for just raise for damage more consistently than the Zoo. Right?
That's an interesting one. By the way, did SjoW just keep both? Oh no, he might. Okay, no. It just looked like yeah. Yeah. Speaking of aggressive and mid-range shaman, I think it's probably right. But then again, a lot of aggressive shaman cards are also very much depending on the board. So they also get much weaker facing through. So it's not entirely clear.
That's correct. Playing better turn 1 from Xixo. Sorry for the technical problems, we'll fix that in a few moments, so don't worry guys, bear with us.
But is it aggro shaman anyway?
Well, it is like a hybrid. It curves out on the thing from below, because it gets discounted either way, because you have Totem Golems, you have Tusker Titanics, so basically you can count it as, let's say, a 4 mana 5/5 minion in most situations.
Right.
It doesn't look bad, you can curve out the damage surgeon and Rogue Biter if you want to kill something, but I don't feel like there's even a...
It looks pretty bad, right? I mean, he just forfeited 1 mana and he made an overkill on the Void Walker, and very beneficial trade for Zoo. He was wondering whether he should have taken the Villager or...
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe if it was worth it to use the Rogue Biter to take out the Void Walker to then kill the Divine, because it's so valuable with use of Surgeons and then the Valkyrie that might become like on turn 4, right?
No, but that's the same as he played, like you're basically suggesting Rock Battering on the Divine Shield, and I don't think that's particularly worth it. I mean, I definitely hear you. I mean, it's not 100% clear, but usually I like not to. Because Rockbiter can also take care of bigger minions later instead of just completing the Divine Shield. But now we already see that Zoo simply seizes completely the board control. I mean, SjoW can usually assume that Xixo is not running Lightning Storm, so he can just overexpand like crazy, not even being in fear of anything.
One way of Xixo making a comeback here might be just a Boom Hammer and ignore the board if your opponent will not draw Defender of Argus and one Voidwalker was already played. Then he doesn't really care about small minions at all.
Right, but I don't think it's ever fast enough because Doom Hammer is basically not that insanely quickly. I mean, it deals 4 damage per turn, and if you take already a look at the Zeus board, we already see 9 damage per turn on the board. So, I mean, he can try, but he won't succeed. And now we even see the second Doom Hammer. But Xixo is trying to seize the board control back by trading his life total into board prisms. I think it's pretty much the only way how you could do it in this position, but it's obviously by far not good enough.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
By the way, it's Xixo playing the Shaman and SjoW playing the Zoo Warlock. So just so you guys know, if someone is tuning right now, but it looks like game over. Without the elemental destruction here in this situation,
Right.
it doesn't look great. So a small consolidation fight for Xixo to Lightning Bolt. Basically get the same amount of damage to the fate while destroying the card.
Yeah, that's a very, very quick one here. I mean, turn 7, game over.
Well, that's how the matchup should look between those two, right?
Absolutely.
So not a surprise here. Kind of unfortunate for Xixo to draw 2 Doom Hammers and 2 things from below. Well, let's imagine if we have a total golem for Tin 2, which would help here.
Right.
Kind of like by a huge margin. The same goes for the Tusker Totemic. If it would give him, let's say, well, the Dreamer scenario is of course Totem Golem, right? But even a Mana Tide Totem to just get those small minions more often in this matchup would be very helpful.
Right. I mean, I would assume that usually the matchup is rather about the Zoo, so that like if the Zoo curves out well, you can do nothing as being Shaman, no matter what your draw is, nearly no matter what your draw is. So you probably, as from the Shaman side, you simply hope that the Zoo's draw is a little bit suboptimal. It wasn't.
It wasn't.
So
yes,
yeah.
definitely
So basically,
wasn't.
that explains why it was also snowballing that quickly. I think the chance Shaman has is that Zoo doesn't develop fast enough, quickly enough, and if Shaman is pari on board, then it's still okay. Yeah, then it's still doable, but only then. So once Zoo even gets a little bit the upper hand, it's over immediately because it's a very snowbally matchup.
Yeah, especially if he can seal the board with Defender of Argus, which is kind of not only trades up with the minions from the Shaman usually, but also soaks up the damage that Shaman would like to trade in, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, now we see that Xixo still has Shaman. I'm not even sure what the matchups are, like for example with the Nizot Rogue.
Nizot Rogue, against this aggro Shaman, I think it depends on how many taunt minions is the Nizot Rogue playing actually.
Right.
Because Doomhammer is something that always it's always presenting a big problem for the Rogue.
Absolutely.
If you don't have enough heals, and in current meta game when we lost the heal bot, and we lost, most of the Rogue players are actually losing Farseers of their own choice, right? They're playing like 1, maybe even no Farseers at all.
Right.
So their potential HP is just 30. And that's problematic when you see a card that deals 16 damage on its own.
It should be pretty bad, right? It should be pretty bad, like for the Nizot Rogue.
Yes,
yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I also think so. Like, that should make a lot of sense. I'm just wondering, like, because SjoW now has to make the win with the Nizot Rogue and with the Tempo Warrior, and I mean, SjoW brought both decks to rank 1 on the ladder, so he should, I mean, it feels for me that these
Legend rank 1, by the way.
Legend rank 1, yeah. So it's basically his best 2 decks. I usually say level 1 if I mean not rank 1. But yeah, so SjoW is a very, very experienced player with both of those decks. So I would assume to see some very, very high skilled action here. Arcanite Reaper, I already see some Arcanite Reaper action.
Yeah, we have seen that yesterday. The reason for that is most likely just to deal with Sylvanas, maybe Kern, which is not really that ideal.
Yeah, or that it's Weapon Warrior, right?
Oh, it's actually it's Pirate Warrior. Well, we didn't see that yesterday.
Right, right, yeah. So then it makes a lot of sense to play the Arcanine Reaper.
Yeah, of course.
With all
But
these
we have
upgrades.
seen Arcanine Reaper then another warrior. That was just no typical mid-range tempo warrior.
Right, right, okay. So we see that SjoW's hand, it's a little bit slow. But I mean, 2 mana 2/3 is also not that threatening. 1 mana 2/1 neither. So the Google makes some. Oh, that's so important.
That's really
so important. Yeah, because we already see also the Ravaging will follow up into point execute potentially. So whatever Xixo plays here, I mean, Xixo is also simply lacking a weapon. I mean, the Bloodsail Cultist could have already buffed a potential weapon if it would have been there.
Well, there's the upgrade, right? It can be used in really critical situations to create a weapon. Could have been considered. Maybe.
Well, but it's only a 1/3 weapon after all, but what we see here is just devastating. I'm also not sure whether Xixo should have played into it, because, I mean, it's not that rare that SjoW will have one of those 2 Ravaging Ghouls, probably roughly about 50-50. And a Ravaging Ghoul simply completely wrecks him, simply shuts down the entire action.
Yeah, and even if there's no ghoul, there's still a possibility of Blood to Ichor, which takes down the Floating Berserker, and then the 2/2 still takes down another minion. Usually, so it's still not that horrible for SjoW in this scenario, right? So
absolutely, so there are 2 possibilities. Either SjoW has like 50-50 for the ghoul, then he probably wins the game right away, or he doesn't have the ghoul, but as you just pointed out, even if he doesn't have the ghoul, it's still not that good for Xixo, so that play was at least, let's say, debatable.
Right. And I really like this play of Corcoran leads. Like, you don't have to play the taunt minions first. I mean, you would like to play the taunt minion first, because the charge minion gets the immediate action, right? You can dictate the choices. But I like it here, because, you know, you're facing a really aggressive deck, so the Corcoran is just stacking so fast.
Right. Yeah, and one reason of also not to play the taunt minion is simply that your opponent didn't have any kind of board. So taunt is, I mean, what it says, right? I mean, you must attack the minion with taunt, but if you don't have any minions on board which can attack, taunt loses a lot of value. So I really like to see the taunt coming down when you actually can benefit from it.
Especially when you know that you're playing against a pirate deck, usually only runs when it comes to aggressiveness. It's the 2 pirates, which we actually saw one before on turn 1, then we have 2 Corcoran leads and a Leroy Jenkins.
Right,
and that's
right.
basically it. Other charge minions can be, let's say, weapons, right? Because that turns the hero into a charge.
Absolutely, yeah. And we also already see a little bit like what you were just talked about. So Xixo just having like only burst damage in the hand, but SjoW unfortunately being like, let's say, 11 points of damage or even more away.
Yeah, and the Armor Smith will even make that road longer for Xixo, right?
Absolutely.
Would you consider trading? Yes.
Absolutely, yeah, I like the trade very much, because you also know that the Pirate Warrior doesn't have access to any kind of whirlwind effect, so 4-1 basically plays like a 4-2, if you want to say so.
That's very nice observation. It comes to the same, like, when let's say, when it comes to Rogue against the Hunter, usually you send your minions 3-2 or 3-3 against the Hunter, because it dies to the same stuff.
Right, right, exactly.
Oh, we're back on the camera. So, 2-0 for SjoW.
That was fast.
Really quick games, but let's say favorable matchups as well, right? In this case, though, Xixo didn't have the optimal hand, let's say like so, right? He didn't have the Fury War Axe, which sometimes can be coined out on turn 1, for example.
Right.
And then to just have those upgrades on the weapon that you play on turn 1 to 2, the cult pirates that buff up your weapons as well are really important to just get that synergy going. And well, basically, for 0 mana investment, because you have the minion for 3 mana as well, you just deal 4 damage or 3 damage for 0 mana. So a huge tempo gain.
But also speaking of the weapons, I mean, that's a little bit the problematic thing with Pirate Warrior, right? So if you don't have the weapons, you cannot really play the pirates without the weapons, because then they are just much weaker. But you also don't necessarily want to develop your weapons on an empty board. Yeah, because the weapons don't do anything if you just play the weapons.
Well, that depends on the matchup.
Of course, right, yeah. I mean, if your opponent plays some minions, you're more than happy to play your X, for example, yeah. Preemptively, yeah. Or even to trade right away, because like if you just use the Fire Warwick preemptively, then you don't pressure, and it's like kind of a face deck. So
you can actually just smash it right instantly, and then upgrade it next and smash it again, and so on, right? Keep the keep the damage flowing.
Right, that's also a possibility, but probably not that early in the game, because you want to begin to smash face with the weapons, perhaps even a little bit later after you already developed some kind of board. So that's a little bit the problem which I see there, because if you develop your weapons too early, but you're forced to do that, then I mean you just don't want the weapons that early. You don't want the Fiery Warwicks turn 1. You want to develop it turn 3, turn 4, turn 5 perhaps.
Because minions are the best damage sources in the game.
Right,
because
that's what I'm
they're
saying. Yeah, exactly. So you rather want to play your minions first, but your minions cannot be deployed without weapons.
Well, this opening hand is not that bad, I would say.
Absolutely.
Turn 1, always a great play, because it can also affect the way you are you make your decisions during the next turns, because you can get a Hunter's Hero Power or Warlock's Hero Power. Those are the two most beneficial, I would say.
Absolutely, we already,
Even the Druid Hero Power is not bad.
Absolutely, yeah. And we see here already the Warlock Hero Power coming up, and that's a really big one, because that creates so much tempo, especially if you're running out of cards. And we also see that SjoW's hand this time is not really appealing, like basically doing not much till nothing. Yeah, it's really not that great. I mean, we also talked about earlier how the Nezot rogue could have some problems with facing tempo decks or curve decks, simply because Nezot rogue needs some time to develop. I mean, the power turn is turn 10, of course, and if you don't reach turn 10, you basically lose, or you never reach that the part of the game where your deck really shines.
I really like the turn here just to play the weapon, because next turn you can play the Dread Corsair into the Cold Pyro, which just buffs the weapon instantly.
Absolutely, it's so big.
So insane.
It's super big. Like that's like 4 damage per turn. The weapon alone represents 12 damage. Yeah, it's insane. I mean,
like
he already has
lethal
lethal
here.
here.
To Doomhammer, right?
Absolutely, yeah. 12 damage, that's really huge. I mean, we can also already count the damage from here. I mean, we also see Mortal Strike, that's interesting. I mean, it's 4 mana for damage, which is not insanely appealing. But if you just count the damage together, it's already like 12 from the weapon, 4 from the Mortal Strike is 16, 6 from Leroy is 22. So we are nearly at 30. And if you say the minions will deal, let's say, at least 8 damage, we already are at lethal. So I really don't see much so good to do in this game, especially not with, for example, Saril. Yeah, with the Rogue, but also with cards like Saril. I mean, Saril is such a bad tempo card. It's so slow in so many aspects. Now it, for example, simply trades off against a 1 mana minion, and that's a huge thing, of course.
Well, you can also consider the option, because you know that the opponent will use one for nice, just additional to damage. It's just counting the damage correctly now.
Right.
Do you need the 2 damage packets in this game or not? Usually, it should be really simple to calculate that against the Rogue, which most likely doesn't have the taunts and doesn't have the heal.
Absolutely, I would not mind it to see the attack to the face for 2 damage, but I think trading a 2-1 into the 3-2 can also nearly never be incorrect. So
yeah, of course, it's pure value, right?
Yeah, it's pure value, and he already had the entire board, which means, I mean, I can definitely understand it that he says, okay, I'm just going for the safe play.
Well, he had over like enough damage already with that without that 2 damage.
Absolutely,
right?
that's
so
the thing.
I'm just saying that sometimes that in some scenarios you can actually count it this way, because you know, just pushing with those phase decks, you have to calculate what is the worst case scenario that the opponent can do, and if that 2 damage might actually make a difference in the long run to, let's say, maybe not rely on a Mortal Strike to the face.
Absolutely, then you should deliver it, yeah. I mean, especially, like, I mean, in this case, I think it's not, it simply didn't matter, because, I mean, if Xixo made the research and he knows what SjoW is playing in his deck, he simply, basically knows that no matter what he does, he simply wins 100% of the cases. There are no miracles suddenly popping up.
An example, if this game would be disconnected,
right, okay, fair enough.
It should have been awarded a win to Xixo, right? But in current rules, it unfortunately would be a remake, right? Without having lethal on board.
Yeah.
But we know that in example, there's no way of making a comeback from this.
Absolutely. So now we see,
Face Shaman. I mean, a hybrid Shaman, let's say it's like so, against the Rogue again. There's one Farseer.
You keep pretty much everything besides the eviscerate, perhaps even? I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can. I like this. I mean,
do you like?
No, I would have liked to keep the healer.
The Farseer against Shaman is especially important, because you always will get at least 1, 2, maybe sometimes even 3 damage during the turn 1 and 2.
Right.
So the packet will be either 2 damage or 3 damage when you play the first hero.
I mean, speaking of which, I definitely like to keep the prep. I mean, I would say the prep is an absolute no-brainer. I mean, like in this matchup, the prep is like absolute vital. Yeah, so that was a pretty much no-brainer. But I would also agree that the fast hero is way too good. I mean, especially against face shaman, right? I mean, that's exactly what face shaman is doing. He targets your face, and healer is exactly the counter to that. So
not only because of the fact that it heals your own hero, but it also trades in the future. So it's kind of like a small projectile that you will use with a 1-turn delay.
Yeah, absolutely. And
let's see what we toxin. It might not matter that much unless it's a deflammable. No, unfortunately it's not. Like the projectile, the 2 damage projectile from the toxin might have mattered in this, like matter a lot in this match.
Absolutely agree. I mean, I was really wondering about prep fan of knife actions. I mean, perhaps it's a little bit too slow. That might be. I mean, Eviscerate is also always a very nice card, so
you have to consider Fan of Knives is really powerful against Shaman with a single spell power. Right. Then it deals with almost every single almost every single totem, right? And it just helps immensely if you lose to, let's say, a Feral Spirit, because then you can finish off one of the wolves with your own dagger.
Yeah, I would have also assumed in general that aggressive shaman runs a lot of divine shields or one health minions, and it's very beneficial against this. But I can also understand that you just drop it away, because in the end it is a cantrip, which means it draws you another card, and that makes you slower again. So while it might be very, very nice to deliver 1 damage on all opponent minions, it's also a little bit slower than, for example, Eviscerate is.
Oh, this without prepping. That is interesting.
I think it's okay, right? I mean, he had the 3 mana left.
Well, he picked
the toad,
right?
Yeah.
If you pick the toad and you would like to play
prep
to fit the toad at the same time, because it's so important to have anything on board.
No, yeah, I like that. I like that to prep it out. You like, if you already have the toad, you should have probably went for the play to prep it, because tempo is so important in this matchup. I mean, it won't come down to value in this matchup, but it will simply come down to pure value. Sorry,
by the way,
to pure tempo.
Like next turn, because of 2 Arbiters.
Absolutely, but we can also see that if he would have done it differently, he would have also top decked SI7. I mean, I'm not saying that he could have known that, but this is just an additional component which also takes some kind of role.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he had the plan A, which is basically play the toad. If something better gets something from the Fan of Knives, then I can replace the toad with the
absolutely. Did you just see the BM?
yes, I did see. Just quick, sorry. Well, SjoW can always remove him from the friend list after the game.
Yeah, that was what I wanted to say. Like, step number 1 is DM into your face, and step number 2 is then removing from the friend list. I heard he removed you, right? Didn't he?
Yeah. That's one of the...
And from all social media, I heard some stories about that, yeah.
Yeah, that's some funny stories behind the scenes. Well, it's 2-2. It's a blazing fast match, although we already have seen 4 matches, right? 4 games, sorry.
Absolutely, blazingly fast, yeah. I mean, I'm taking a look at my watch, and it's like 25 minutes, 4 games. That's like 6 minutes per game, 7 minutes per game. Like, that's
You would have
insane.
played 1 during that time.
Yeah, maximally, yeah. Well, yeah, that hits about right, yeah.
Yeah. So what was the last class for SjoW?
Yeah, it's still the same, right?
Oh, yeah, right,
It's,
sorry.
it's a Nizot rogue. He wants to... Is it even then? Yeah, it's
so for Xixo, it will be Druid.
Which is the cartoon Druid. I would assume that Nizot rogue has the upper hand. What do you think, Lothar?
All those Death Rattle minions will have a huge impact on the board state against the Druid, because he will have to deliver like over damage every single minion, because the packets of the damage will be way bigger than the initial health of each minion, usually.
Yeah.
When it comes to Death Rattle minions, right? So
absolutely.
a huge damage output loss for the Druid if you want to trade.
Right,
It kinda encourages the Druid player to play the face game, but it will not work against a rogue with saps.
We also saw SjoW keeping the Shadow Strike, which is kind of interesting. It seems for me that he's really afraid of the Stackhelm, yeah? Stackhelm has 3-5, but can win games alone. And for me, it feels the Shadow Strike keep was mainly due to that.
Yeah, well, that's true. But I just wanted touching the topic, like the Ktun's chosen on turn 1 is so weak against rogues.
Ultimately, ultimately we can already see it here. It just simply gets traded off, and there was kind of a very big investment going on from Xixo. I felt like spending the coin and an inner raid to get this 4-2 taunt Divine Shield going on. That was really cost heavy. We also see the Ember Weaver, but we also see it off curve kind of, because you need to first deploy the Disciple to get your Cartoon to 10, and then you will be able to play the Ember Weaver. So
And
you're
it's
not
still-
able to play it in curve.
Yeah, exactly. And the Disciple of Ktun will die to the dagger, so it's like, well, kind of lackluster.
Yeah, yeah.
Because then you
it's-
need to use hero power, but you lost your innervate, so that puts you off curve heavily.
It's absolutely not ideal at all. Like playing the Ember Weaver, he would simply die to the Shadow Strike. Playing the Disciple of Cartoon is super bad against the weapon, and we already see a Tomb Pillager as a follow-up, so that's pretty much huge. So I would assume, yeah, you even see the Klexi Ember Weaver coming down here. That's kind of
Yeah, well,
a big
that's
one.
that's how the Ktun druid feels. In most
Absolutely.
of the situations, if you don't have the perfect opener.
Absolutely, yeah. And we already see here some decision making, Shadow Strike or Tomb Pillager. It's kind of, it might be obvious to play the Shadow Strike.
It is, but sometimes you need to reconsider, like, maybe it's just better to play a minion, because that, if your opponent will not, will trade with the Farseer, most likely there will be no way of healing up that minion, and SjoW is lacking a play for turn 5.
Absolutely.
So he can then play the Fan of Knives to cycle to for a turn 6 drop, an example, and use his dagger to finish off the Flexi Weaver, right?
But here he can also Shadow Strike into attack with a weapon, for example. But I guess like it came down. I mean, SjoW was also very undecisive between Shadow Strike and Tomb Pillager, and I think in this case it simply goes down because it's so close. It comes down to what card you have in the hand. So SjoW opted in for the Shadow Strike because he had the second one, and he also has a minion which he can play if he doesn't need to be responsive. So like this, he kept one spell and one minion, whereas if he would have played the minion, he would have ended up with 2 situational spells, and if your opponent wouldn't have delivered so that you have a good answer with Shadow Strike, he would have had a dead turn, for example. So I really like SjoW's play here a lot.
Double Farseers, by the way, something that we didn't anticipate. I mean, I didn't anticipate. Maybe in Zod Rogue it makes more sense, definitely, because
Right.
you have less tempo-based action.
Absolutely, yeah. I also don't mind the double Farseer. I mean, Farseer is always a very solid card. We also see Xixo kind of running out a little bit out of steam, but not really, right?
Well,
I
he
mean,
has a Falnos, right? So maybe the Falnos is a good distance just to play on curve, first of all, because you can Disciple of Ktun and the Falnos, play both the Falnos and Disciple of Ktun into a raft to kill, let's say, the Edwin. But maybe it's better just to play hero power, just to not play into a Fan of Knives.
I would assume that we would see a cycling here. Pretty sure, yeah, there's a cycling, and I really like it much. I think you can not use the Ras for the full power, because if you think about it, if he would have used the Ras for the full power, and for whatever reason the Blood Mage doesn't deliver, then suddenly Xixo is completely dead in cards, and he could definitely not take the risk, because this would mean losing the series right away. So instead he opted in for cycling the Ras, which is definitely, yeah, I would really like it much more.
Well,
Now we
still,
see-
those minions from Druid are just kind of not impactful.
Well,
at
the
all.
Dragon is kind of a very nice one.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
but-
that's an interesting one here, the Fan of Knives instead of the Pillager. This was...
Well, he had a prep. He could have prepped as well, right?
I don't think he would have liked to prep it, but he could have perhaps traded the 3-3 instead and playing the Pillager in curve, but it was probably a close one. So I don't mind seeing this here. But you're right, I mean the prep also indicates that perhaps he doesn't want to play the Fan of Knives blank, because like now he doesn't have anything to prep into, whereas if he would have played the Tomb Pillager instead, he would have had in the hand still prep and Fan of Knives, which is more beneficial if he throws another Dragon or his auction he plays. Yeah.
Well,
And he also gets the coin to perhaps get Nezot earlier. That was also something to be considered.
how many Deathrattle minions are dead right now? I don't think there's any apart from...
It's one Tomb Pillager, right?
Get 2?
Didn't he? Oh no, no wait. No.
I
He
think
played.
it didn't.
No, no, it didn't get played, right? No, never mind.
Yeah. So now the Inzot doesn't really deliver that much. Oh, that's actually great if you want to sacrifice the Bran, because you can get a double draw, which is kind of crucial in this situation. feel like getting back on the card advantage.
So how many
This
death
turn.
rattle minions did
I think it actually.
none. Oh,
I think it's actually none.
oh, okay.
Because there were 2 Farseers and Edwin,
Right.
and the Tomb Pillager wasn't played since turn 4.
Yeah,
Basically.
it's right. That's also a little bit sad that you have a Tomb Pillager and you never see it being played. But okay, now we get into the action. And we can also already see, I mean, if you get a corrupted heal bot and the Pillager from your Nezot, I mean, it's not that
It's
bad.
not terrible.
It's not
Yes.
terrible, exactly.
Xixo's not happy with that draw.
But Xixo is also kind of running out of steam now, what we have basically already analyzed.
Yeah, and he had double draw from the other Drake, so it doesn't look good for him. Definitely.
Well, but on the other hand, double draw from the Ezreal also indicates that he drew all the low mana cost cards, so probably higher cost mana cards are remaining in his deck,
So now
presumably.
this is now a very difficult decision, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. We see SjoW being out of cards, and while there's
Having
a
2
Sivana
preps that are non-impactful to the board at all in this situation, right? So it's
Yeah.
either just sacrificing 5 life this turn, at least 5 life, if you play just the Falnos for the card draw for next turn, but that leaves the Nzot practically useless unless you draw a spell
Yeah.
next turn, which you then need to combine with the preparations
Yeah.
from the Falnos. So I think there's no brainer. You have to just play the Nzot in this situation.
But that's super interesting here. I don't like the Nezot, by the way. Yeah, I think Nezot simply loses on the spot. I mean, if you play Nezot, you already
Right,
know.
because there's a Tomb Pillager that has 5 attack, so he can trade immediately in the Tomb
Yeah, not
Pillager.
only that, he would probably even shapeshift the heal bot and then attack the hero. There are many options Xixo has in this position, and all are not good at all. So I feel like with this play, you're simply giving up your win condition a little bit. I mean, now there are so many beneficial. It's insane, right? I mean, the value from Sylvanas here is simply ridiculous, and I think you could have prevented it by simply playing Blood Mage into Dagger Up, and then just hoping. I mean, Blood Mage also indicates that you will even draw another card. So it means that if he would have gone for the Blood Mage, he would have had like
Well, he
2
needs
draws
one
to
swap.
draw anything.
One sap, right? He needs one sap to play Nzot and the prep sap at the same turn, sap Sylvanas, have the damage on the board, and then maybe refill the board with less impactful minions to kill the Sylvanas in the upcoming turn.
Absolutely, absolutely that. So yeah, but we will see what he takes. I mean, both things are very good.
Well,
I'm not even sure whether the like 5/4 is very big.
with a stealth, that is not really that important. And now he's in a situation when he can't trade because his hand is practically empty.
Right.
And sacrificing the minions right now does put him in a situation when he will just be always on the back foot because his opponent most likely his deck is built with minions. It's filled with minions.
Yeah, but he wants to trade, right? I mean, he cannot possibly believe that what he got on the board is enough to win the game, right? And if he doesn't believe that it's enough, like what he got on the board, then he should simply trade. Because I mean, Xixo can do the trade or he can do something better. But with not trading, he basically dealt 5 face damage. But it doesn't look to me that the 5 face damage are taking an important role here. Like, absolutely not. I mean, the 5 face damage are pretty much irrelevant. Whereas giving Xixo the ability to play perhaps simply swipe into instant win the game is so
Well, he had
big.
one swipe already.
One, yeah, but or some. It doesn't matter. Like even if what you see here, that would simply give him the ability to do something else than just trading. I just don't think it's worth it. I mean, it's not that SjoW was like few life of lethal. I mean, Xixo is at 30 life.
I think the problem is that he picked that corrupted healbot from the journey from below because that corrupted healbot put Xixo back into the game.
Right. Well.
12 HP, he would have been on actually 16 or something like that when it comes to HP.
Yeah, I mean the game would have also played out in a different kind, but I think that the really key turn where everything changed has been what we saw within Nezot. So SjoW opted in to play Nezot to revive 2 minions, but at the same time, if you take a look at it, Sylvanas already trades basically all minions on the board away. Like one of the minions, one of the 3 minions, could simply trade it simply against Sylvanas. Sylvanas took the second minion, which could then trade into the third minion, which means Sylvanas alone was basically answering the Nezot completely, and I don't think that that was worth it.
Yeah.
It's not black and white. I mean, in some cases, the Nezot play here is a little bit better depending on the cards which come up. So if you assume that you really draw only blanks, like absolutely nothing, then it would have been correct to play Nezot right away. But I think you should just take the shot, because if you play Nezot right away, you're basically giving up the game on the spot. Whereas if you wait, you have a small chance to come back.
Okay. Well, that concludes the series.
Yeah, what a comeback by Xixo to be able to go down 0-2 and be able to climb back 3 games in a row. I agree a lot with what Life Coach said. We can use hindsight to even, to help bolster our argument as well. Like, he ended up drawing more Death Rattle minions to draw more cards, which would make Sylvanas even more complicated. He drew his Zeril into his Huckster, and imagine if Sylvanas didn't able to steal those big minions and fight back. But I mean, it's also easy for us to say because we're in this position of power, where we know the information. So, good for us to know, and sucks for show. But congratulations to Xixo. He moves on to the round of 4, or the finals of the Horde side of the bracket. So a job well done, a player that's always performed pretty well in some of these online tournaments, and yet again getting a mark of consistency. Pretty ironic too, by the way, that SjoW said that his speed card was Sylvanas, and I think in game number 5, ended up showing why maybe Sylvanas is a pretty strong card, but just unfortunately was in the wrong camp this time.
Yep, that's true. Like as we said before the games, it was the most impactful card yesterday, and we started with the same sign today.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that wraps up our first series of the day. We have just getting started. We have another one coming up. I'm here for the Horde side of the bracket. It's going to be Stan Cifka versus Super JJ. So stick around, guys. When we come back, our second series here at the Xfinity Hearthstone Invitational, day number 2.